Hi, thank you so much. You know, I feel like I'm at a TED Talks conference. Isn't this great? I hope it's all being recorded because I need to go back and absorb because there's so much wonderful information here. Again, my name is Treon Goossen, and I am the state coordinator for an organization based out of Virginia called ParentalRights.org. And before I get started, this is something I just love to do. Could all the veterans in the audience please stand? All the veterans, please. Today and every day, as Veterans Day is coming up especially. Thank you so much. Parents, I'm just reading from this handout that Dawn gave me, and you found it on your seat, and it just fits in very well with just what a few things I wanted to share with you today. It says, as you go down on the bullet points, it says patients, and I would insert parents as well, make treatment decisions. That's the claim. Well, if you move over, it says Obamacare proves that this is not the case with government-controlled health care. When CPS and judges and medical professionals trained by this very controlling healthcare system that we have even now, I shudder to think what it would even turn into under the single-payer healthcare. It equals disaster. The intrusion into parental rights via healthcare, Obamacare, and now the proposed single-payer healthcare system are mind-boggling and very dangerous. I've recently spoken to several parents who just came to me and just started telling me all their horror stories from visiting the doctor's office, the pediatrician's office, told to leave the room, or the children asking the children, is it okay if your mom and dad are in here so we can, talk freely? We're talking elementary school children. We're not talking, it goes on up. So parents are getting very concerned. And many families are avoiding the doctor's office and choosing alternative health care for themselves and their children. And this option is also facing increasing regulation because this mainstream health care hates the natural health care system. So they want to obliterate it or regulate it into oblivion to where we can't even use it. Exemptions to childhood immunizations are coming under increasing attack in the state legislature and across the country. And Dr. Mary told me this morning that Florida, thank God, voted down the mandatory vaccines in their state. Unfortunately, California passed one a few months ago, and other states are following suit. I fully expect to see some legislation this year, possibly eliminating one or more of our exemptions, or also maybe mandating. I know that is the bottom line, what they would like to do. So we need to take ownership of healthcare. We need to take it back. We need to take it back. Doesn't need the government telling us what to do. It needs to be us as patients, parents, and consumers to go to healthcare and say, here's what I'm here for, here's what I want. Now you give me options and I'll decide. Not a dictatorship. A few years ago, I took back my healthcare. It was an interesting situation. I was facing surgery, and I went ahead with the surgery, but afterwards I refused the chemo and radiation. They wanted to do just precautionary. I said, no, thank you. I need my immune system to fight this. So I battled my healthcare provider in his office. He came in, basically, he was screaming, I was talking. He threw his clipboard down and slammed it down on the counter and informed me that I was basically an idiot, didn't know what I was saying, and that I would come crawling back to him. And he slammed out the door. I thought, well, that was really mature. But you see, when you stand up for your rights, and you decide, by the way, that was like 12 years later, and I'm standing in front of you today, healthier than I've ever been in my life. So taking back our health care to our own hands can sometimes prove to be a little violent on their side, and I'm going to read through some examples of what we're dealing with here. But it's clear something must be done to protect parental rights in health care, and that is what I'm here to talk about today, parental rights in health care. We are currently introducing in January a parental rights amendment to the federal Constitution. Because if we don't have something in the Constitution, if you look at our Constitution, the federal one, in Article 6, it says that any treaty adopted becomes the law of the land. The only thing it will not supersede is what is specifically, explicitly written in the federal Constitution. And I don't think our founding our founding fathers ever dreamt that the day would come when parental rights would be challenged as they are today. And so what we are trying to do is to get this amendment, this wording, very basic wording, into the federal Constitution. And the first segment just simply says this: the liberty of parents to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their children is a fundamental right. Now, how simple is that? To direct the education, upbringing, and care, which would include health care of their children. You know, as a parent, I always felt like I had the right to direct the health care. You know, more and more, that is not so. I've had a few battles in the pediatrician's offices as well. And it's quite the story. So we are looking at doing that as a solution to hopefully help. But also on the state level, we're introducing another parental rights bill in the state legislature in 2016. It is currently, hopefully, in drafting, and it will be a much smaller bill than last year. One that if anyone would vote against it, it would have to be voted against on the virtue of parental rights solely. Not on the case of health care, mental health care, testing in schools, and so on and so forth. It needs to be, this is what a parental right is, and this is a fundamental right. Yes or no. And so I would really appreciate your support and your prayers, and all my legislative friends here today. Keep an eye out for that because it is coming. And I just want to share with you, just briefly, a couple of stories that will maybe help you understand the battle. Like I say, when CPS and judges and these medically trained healthcare, dare I say Nazis, kind of like that mentality. Not all of the medical professionals, but a lot of them are. And when they decide what is best for your child and not you. This is an example that took place just actually a few short months ago. And it says, one would think having the approval of a doctor and even clearance from the local police would be enough to protect a parent from having their baby taken away over the cries of medical neglect. In this case, you would be wrong. Anna and Alex Nikolaev of Sacramento, California, lost custody of their 5-month-old son when they decided to seek a second opinion before having the baby undergo heart surgery. Now, is that such a crazy thing to do? How many of you guys ever asked for second opinions? I have, many times. And the second doctor found it safe to release the boy into their custody. And though an investigating officer also cleared the family to go home alone, the child was taken away the next day. This is a 5-month-old baby. Little Sammy had a heart murmur since birth, which the parents were closely monitoring along with the doctor at the Sutter Memorial Hospital. So when Sammy developed flu-like symptoms, his parents took him to Sutter again as a precaution, just like what good parents do. During his 2-week stay, a couple of incidents occurred that concerned the parents, such as administering an antibiotic to fight his virus. So when Sammy was put into pediatric intensive care and turned to heart surgery, the parents simply wanted a second opinion. They didn't remove him from the hospital or anything, they just wanted a second opinion. Unable to secure release from the doctors at Sutter Memorial, the parents took Sammy from the hospital anyway. They did remove him, prompting an automatic call to guess who? Child Protective Services and the Sacramento Police. And they drove straight to neighboring Kaiser Permanente Hospital. They took him from one hospital to another. They didn't take him home. They were seeking a second opinion. Doctors there determined that Sammy was healthy enough to go home with his parents. Interesting, second opinion. The doctor noted in his report that he saw no cause for concern in leaving Sammy and Anna and Alex's care. Corrective heart surgery was in the baby's future, and the parents never, ever disputed that fact. Police met the family at Kaiser, checked out the smiling baby, read the doctor's report, and agreed that Sammy was in no danger. The Nikolaev family was free to go. That was April 23rd. The following day, a CPS worker and a Sacramento police arrived at the family's home and removed the baby, carrying him back to the Sutter Memorial where he was held in protective custody. Now, isn't that a very sad thing when your children are held in protective custody from you because you were seeking a second opinion on their health care? Though the parents got to visit Sammy to feed him 3 times a day for 1 supervised hour, then they had to wait until Monday for a hearing. Then coverage had gone international, and there was getting a lot of pressure on CPS, and so they told this ABC news station but they were overwhelmed with the amount of attention by the media into the case and could therefore take longer than usual to render a decision on Sammy's fate. Then a judge, remember I said what happens when a judge decides to administer health care, he ordered Sammy returned, but with several stipulations, directly violating the couple's right to direct the upbringing and care of their child, and absent a showing of abuse or neglect. And with these restrictions, he was transported to another hospital. Can you imagine the nightmare these parents were going through with a 5-month-old baby? And so the CPS workers, according to this judge, would continue to monitor Sammy's progress. Now that's a nightmare in itself. Sammy was transported to Stanford on May 1st, and his surgery took place on May 10th. Everything went well as it could, and on May 16th, a recovering Sammy returned home with his parents. And for the first time since his removal by the police force. So you would think, hey, this is okay. Well, the parents returned to court on May 28th, hoping the case against them would be dismissed. At the hearing, the family's lawyers asked the judge to schedule the trial as soon as possible. CPS wanted another 60 days to observe the family through additional invasive home visits. The judge ordered the trial for his first available date, July 29th, which is about 60 days, giving CPS what they wanted. And so there's a California assemblyman named Tim Donnelly who didn't approve of this. So he said, why are they not free to determine what is in the best interest of their own child? And that is a question we all ask. Why are they not free to determine? This healthcare system, folks, we've heard so much this morning about what it's about, how it works, how it impacts the cost, but getting down on the very personal level, the invasiveness of this healthcare into the family is atrocious. Into adoptive families, especially, and foster care families, and all these families who legitimately seek health care for their children, what they face is just unconscionable at times. In the interest of finding answers to this and other questions, the state legislative auditor, began to audit CPS. It didn't do a whole lot of good, but they were eventually released from the jaws of CPS, having never been convicted of any wrongdoing. This family was never found guilty on any count, was never convicted of any wrongdoing, and yet look what happened to them. No sufficient justification for the state's involvement has ever been provided, but the California legislature is still looking into the affairs of the Trouble Division, and it's a monstrosity. Anyone who's ever had any news CPS knows that they're a monstrosity. And this is one story of literally hundreds that occur every year, and it goes on and on. A CPS worker removed a young girl who was a diabetic from the home because the CPS worker was a diabetic herself, and she thought that child's blood sugar should be the same as hers. Yeah. So she took her away. And so it took, they finally figured out everything was cool, but it was a month later until the parents got their hands on the report stating that the child was normal, that they were able to go and get their child. CPS would have held on to that child indefinitely. No. What gives a CPS worker that kind of power? It's because they're trained in this system as well. They're trained that the government knows best, the healthcare system knows best, and the parent, sorry, you don't know anything. So that's what I do. I work in this arena because I've experienced it myself, but for all of the millions of families in America who need to take back ownership of healthcare and of parental rights. And so I brought a lot of information on the back table. I brought our petition to sign. It's not a legal type petition. We use the numbers to present, not the information, but the numbers to present to congressmen here in Colorado, but we do this on a national basis to inform them and say, you've got 500,000 people in your little district who want you to support parental rights. Sit up and take notice. And so that's what we're working towards. We're working towards the solution as we're also working towards the other solutions to, for heaven's sake, not get single-payer health care, but also to get rid of Obamacare and get it to something that works, that where the parents and the patients have the ownership into that. And with that, I just want to thank you again for having me here this morning, and God bless you all. Thank you.